UFC 319 is looking absolutely stacked right now. If you guys agree, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. We're trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. It takes 1 second. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the ideal winner of every fight at UFC 319. I know, it's only going to be the first video of a lot of videos talking about UFC 319, because when you have one of the most highly anticipated main events in the last 5 years, this deserves and equivalates to a lot of content. So like I said, subscribe and let's get into it. We're going to start off with a couple prelims who I think would be the most ideal winner for every fight. That is what today's video is going to be about, and we'll start off with the prelims. I'm just going to go over this real quick. I think Chase Hooper would be the best outcome to win against Alexander Hernandez. Obviously, Chase Hooper is on like a 5-fight winning streak in the lightweight division. He's a big name. A lot of people know him because of his memes. Dude, I was gooning, spent too much time gooning last camp, he said. And Chase Hooper's a very fun personality, obviously. He's young, dude. The kid debuted when he was like 18, 19 on Dana White's Contender Series. He's still a very good grappler, one of the best grapplers in the lightweight division. His striking is improving. And yeah, man, say if he gets past Alexander Hernandez, I think a ranked opponent is definitely due at this point. A lot of people were saying that Chase Hooper should have got a ranked opponent after beating Jim Miller. Obviously, he did not go with that route. He's going to keep fighting Alexander Hernandez. Maybe even after this fight, he can just keep building his winning streak against random farmers. I mean, I know Alexander Hernandez isn't a random farmer. The kid's most notable moment in his career is getting chinned by Donald Cerrone. But you guys know what I mean, dude. Chase Hooper, hopefully he gets a round 1 submission over Alexander Hernandez. I think that would boost his career and just his ego, I guess, a lot more. Moving on, the next fighter in the prelims who I think would benefit a lot from the win. The best outcome for the fight, Ruziboyev versus Bryan Battle, it's gonna be Bryan Battle, dude. Bryan Battle, obviously, he was at welterweight. He missed weight his last fight against Randy Brown. That was a very close fight. A lot of people argue Randy Brown won his fight, and he was probably just outside the rankings at welterweight. Now the kid has moved up to middleweight. I think he used to fight at heavyweight, for goodness sake. So moving up to middleweight does not seem like that too bad of a fight. Ruziboyev, though, that is a tough matchup. And Bryan Battle, obviously, one of the biggest trash talkers in the UFC right now. It would mean a lot if you could go out there and starch Ruziboyev, who's, again, not someone to overlook, dude. Ruziboyev's only losses to, I think, Joaquin Buckley, and that's not a bad loss. Joaquin Buckley is like a staple of the top 5 in the welterweight division. Bryan Battle, it's going to be a tough challenge to get past Ruziboyev, but Ruziboyev, he's very good. If Bryan Battle gets past him, it will boost him even more into stardom. Moving on to the final fight of the prelim that we're going to talk about, Bobby Green. Bobby Green, this Bobby Green has a lot of name value, so that's why I decided to include him in this video. But he's going against Diego Ferreira, who is 40 years old. Bobby Green, I think it would be better for him to win his fight because, a lot of people, we know Bobby Green. Bobby Green's a little bit of a bigger name than Diego Ferreira. And Diego Ferreira's 40, King Green's 38, so it's like both of them are old as heck. That age doesn't matter in this scenario, but still, dude, I think Bobby Green, a lot of people know him, dude. We can pop this guy right back on a main card if he gets a win over Diego Ferreira, who honestly he's only lost to the top guys at lightweight. King Green can add his name to that resume as maybe being a top guy at lightweight. And now we got all the preliminary bouts out of the way, so we're going to be talking about the main card. Obviously, the best outcome for every fight on the UFC main card of UFC 319. Let's talk about it. Obviously, opening up the card, we have Kai Asakura versus Tim Elliott. A very classy fight we have here. Kai Asakura, obviously former champion and rising, I believe, and Tim Elliott, former title challenger, actually. But the kid's washed nowadays, guys. I think you guys know who I think would be better for the UFC to win this fight. It would be Kai Asakura, dude. Kai Asakura, obviously, like I said, double champ. Maybe there's a bit of a mystique around him. He went 2 rounds with Pantoja. He put Pantoja in one bad situation in the fight when he hit a flying knee, but realistically, that was all Pantoja's fight. He was doing decent in the striking until he got finished and put on his back, which he didn't look that good in. But say he goes in there and starches Tim Elliott and gets a flying knee KO, we could be talking about this guy as someone in the freaking top 5 of the division. We've seen Kai France, he just went out there, he got submitted by Pantoja, so maybe Kai Asakura is not as bad as we think, dude. If Kai France is getting submitted by Pantoja, well then maybe Kai Asakura is not that bad for getting finished by him in the second round. Still, Kai Asakura, I think he's a very good striker, a very fun striker, and he definitely possesses KO power. He has a lot of knockouts, a lot of knee KOs. and say he gets a win, dude. I think this guy, like I said, he can be a staple of the top 5 at flyweight. I don't exactly know how old he is, so I'm hoping he's not like 35. I think he's like early 30s, so I think him winning this would definitely be a good outcome for the featherweight division, especially because the UFC, we're kind of killing this division by cutting guys like Muhammad Mokaev and stuff like that. So hopefully Kaya Sakura can get it done. Obviously, the next fight on this card, MVP versus Jared Cannonier. And for this fight, I had a hard time deciding who would be better for business. And looking at a business standpoint, who would be better for the UFC to win this fight? And I was tossing the idea back and forth. And overall, I went with MVP. I think MVP, he has a lot of name value. Dare I say MVP is more popular than Jared Cannonier. We know MVP as a lot of casuals know MVP, I should say, as the Bellator guy, the PFL guy who has really fun striking and he just hops around like KSI. That's how a lot of casuals know MVP. MVP, obviously, he is a very fun style, very casual heavy style, very entertaining, good counter striker, just a very fun fighter, dude. MVP, every time he fights, I just love watching him. And Jared Cannonier, he's a little bit of a journeyman at this point in his career. He's coming off a loss to Kyle Barajo, and before that, he's coming off a bad loss to Imavov. That was an early stoppage, guys, but still, you know, he's coming off 2 back-to-back losses. MVP is coming off a win right now to Sharmagomedov, just derailing one of the biggest prospects in the UFC. The hype is on MVP's side. A nice win for MVP. He'd be ranked 7th at middleweight if he wins this, so I think he just like give up at welterweight. I don't think MVP would fight at welterweight anymore if he gets a win over the number 7th middleweight. And say MVP wins this, dude, there's a lot of fresh matchups, dude. We can see him versus Israel Adesanya, a dream matchup people have talked about. Him versus Sean Strickland versus Robert Whittaker even. Jared Cannonier, dude, you look at Jared Cannonier, he's faced a lot of the top guys. Robert Whittaker, Izzy, like, it's just like there's too many guys that Jared Cannonier has already faced. MVP is a lot of a fresher fighter at middleweight especially, so I think there's a lot more fun matchups for MVP than there is Jared Cannonier. Jared Cannonier is also just slightly older, so I think that definitely benefits MVP. He's the better fighter to win for business standpoints. MVP is, of course. Moving on to the next fight, Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal. And boys, this is going to be a certified banger of a fight. Jeff Neal is always putting on wars. Carlos Prates is probably going to chin you in the first round if you're not honest. Carlos Prates is going to keep you honest with that jab. Carlos Prates is going to keep you honest with a nice overhand. And I think this is a pretty easy one. You know, the last one, Jared Cannonier versus MVP. I was tossing the idea back and forth on who is better for business, but this one's pretty easy, guys. Obviously, the much younger fighter, the fighter who possesses a lot more name value to casuals especially, Carlos Prates, dude. Carlos Prates, he got fraud checked by Ian Gary. He rocked Ian Gary in that 5th round, though. Don't forget, man. Don't forget. He has that KO power. And unlike anyone else at welterweight, no one else at welterweight really has, like, knockout power like this guy does. And I think that could benefit him, dude. I think later on in his career, dude, if he is actually going to result into something decent, when he's facing your Sean Brady's, if he does become a staple of that top 5 at welterweight, well, then his KO power is going to help him a lot more. And if this guy does become a staple of the top 5 at welterweight, maybe we'll be looking back and we'll be looking at this guy's resume saying, oh, he picked up a crafty win over Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal is just old, dude. Jeff Neal, this is usually the type of fight he loses, dude. He loses to your Shavkats. He loses to your up-and-comers. He loses to these guys. And Carlos Prates, this fight was originally booked for UFC 314, obviously got rebooked for 319. And Carlos Prates would be the dream winner for this fight. I think just perfect matchmaking. If he gets a good win over Jeff Neal, we're going to be able to see his skill a lot more clearly. And yeah, that's best for business. Moving on to the co-main event, Aaron Picto versus Lerone Murphy. And on the surface, again, this might be a little bit of a hard thing to determine who would be better for the UFC to win. But the more I think about it, the more easy this answer just becomes to me. It's obviously going to be Aaron Picto, guys. Literally, everyone in the UFC hates Lerone Murphy. If you're a UFC fan, you hate Lerone Murphy. Unless you're British, which don't watch my channel. Lerone Murphy, what's an Aaron Pico, man? Aaron Pico, obviously, he's getting hyped up a lot. You know, I don't really know where this unnecessary hype is coming from necessarily, but you know, UFC is kind of forcing this guy in our face. So over the last couple months, we've kind of been forced to learn who this guy is. We've kind of been forced to accept who this guy is. So if you watch UFC, at least like as a casual at this point, I'm sure you heard the name before just because of how much the UFC has been just shoving this guy in our face. And most UFC fans, we hate Lerone Murphy, and we could see something spicy happen in the featherweight division if Aaron Pico just goes in there and chins Lerone Murphy. Imagine that. Imagine that. Everyone's hating on Aaron Pico right now. But I guarantee you, he would gain a lot of fans if he goes into that building, UFC 319, the co-main event, dude. Everyone's watching, and he just chins Lerone Murphy with like a head kick or a left hook. Just flatlines Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy's just body's laying lifelessly on the floor. He would get a lot of fans. I would be one of the fans because I hate Lerone Murphy, and I would love to see him get chinned. Aaron Pico, dude, I'm not familiar with your game. Don't really know who you are, but if you could go in there and chin Lerone Murphy, well, then you definitely be something spicy in the 145 division, dude. We can do matchups like this guy versus Patricio Pitbull. We can do matchups like this guy versus Yair Rodriguez or Arnold Allen. There's a lot of fun matchup, and from what I'm hearing, this guy is a very fun fighter. Pretty much the complete opposite of Lerone Murphy, who's very boring, has a very British style, I should say. So I think Aaron Pico, what's in Aaron Pico? He should be the ideal winner for this fight. And moving on to the main event, guys, you've seen the thumbnail of this video, you've seen the title of this video. I'm sure you guys know who I'm gonna say. It's gonna be Khamzat Chimaev, dude. Dricus, you're very promotable. Don't get me wrong, dude. If this was anyone else, I'd probably be picking Dricus. Both of these guys are very promotable guys, but Khamzat Chimaev is just, he is aura, dude. Most casuals know Khamzat Chimaev, dude. Khamzat Chimaev is one of the biggest names in the sport right now. Dricus du Plessis, I understand where you're coming from, dude. If you have an argument for Dricus du Plessis, maybe I can see it. I mean, obviously the guy's African. The UFC wants to go to Africa. They've talked about going to Africa for years and years now, and he has 2 title defenses. He's building up a serious resume. He's building up a serious conversation for him being the middleweight GOAT. Check out my last video. That's what my last video was about. But Dricus du Plessis has a serious case for being one of the greatest middleweights of all time. And I understand where you're coming from, but Khamzat has aura, bro. Khamzat has aura. I sound like a casual right now, but Khamzat is a marauder, bro. Khamzat Chimaev, so fun. One of the most fan-friendly fight styles in the UFC right now. You know what you're getting yourself into when you watch a Khamzat Chimaev fight. You know what you're getting yourself into. You know you're going to watch and you're going to see Khamzat Chimaev shoot a takedown within 30 seconds of this fight. And brother, he's going to smash. I kill everybody. He's going to smash his opponent. And that's what you're signing up for when you're watching a Khamzat Chimaev fight. And that's why a lot of people are going to be tuning into UFC 319. He is one of the funnest fighters, one of the best fighters in the UFC right now. Khamzat Chimaev, literally just the perfect champion the UFC needs right now. The birth of a star we could be seeing at UFC 319, and that is what makes this card so special. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. This is just the first of many videos we're going to be talking about UFC 319. MMA Outpost out.